Hello Interstellar everyone, welcome to class 12 biology. In this video on chapter 15 biodiversity and conservation, we are going to talk about biodiversity conservation, right? So why should we conserve biodiversity and how should we conserve biodiversity, right? So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in this video, and this is going to be the final video of the chapter. Thereafter we are done with the chapter. Okay, so biodiversity conservation. Why should we conserve biodiversity is the first topic. Okay, so why should we conserve biodiversity? So there are many reasons. Some reasons are very obvious and some reasons they are not so obvious, right? But there are many reasons. Those reasons can be grouped into three broad categories. So these three categories are: first one is narrowly utilitarian reasons, or narrowly utilitarian arguments of conserving biodiversity. And then we have broadly utilitarian reasons of conserving biodiversity. And finally, we have got ethical reasons or ethical arguments of conserving biodiversity. So let us discuss about them one by one. The first category of arguments on why we should conserve biodiversity is narrowly utilitarian arguments. So these arguments, they are quite obvious arguments on why we should conserve biodiversity. So in narrowly utilitarian arguments of conserving biodiversity, we say we should conserve biodiversity because we get direct economic benefits from nature. This is quite a narrow way of thinking, right? We say we should conserve biodiversity because we get direct economic benefits from plants and animals of nature. So therefore, we should conserve biodiversity. Right? So that is why it is called as narrowly utilitarian arguments. Okay, so what kind of economic benefits do we get from nature? So from nature we get things like food, firewood, fiber, construction materials, industrial products like tannins, lubricants, dyes, resins, perfumes, all these secondary metabolites of plants. And we also get products of medicinal importance. Right? For example, more than 25% of drugs that are currently sold in the market, they are all derived from plants. Right? And about 25,000 species of plants, they are used in traditional medicines worldwide, such as Indian Ayurvedic medicines. Right? They are all derived from plant products. So since we are getting direct economic benefits from nature, right? So therefore we should conserve biodiversity. So such arguments are categorized under narrowly utilitarian arguments of conserving biodiversity. The second category of arguments of conserving biodiversity is broadly utilitarian ones. Right? In this argument, we say we have to conserve biodiversity because biodiversity has major role in many of the ecosystem services. Now, what do we mean by ecosystem services? Ecosystem services are those services rendered by ecosystem for the welfare of human beings, which we take for granted. So it is for free, so we take it for granted. For example, right, the Amazonian rainforest, it produces about 20% of the Earth's atmospheric oxygen for free, right? If you calculate how much does a cylinder of oxygen cost in a hospital, you will realize how much free service we get from Amazonian rainforest. And then we can also think about pollination done by pollinators, such as bees, right? They do pollination, right? And they do it for free so that the crops can grow. Right? And you think about yourself, if you have to do pollination by yourself, how long will it take? How cumbersome it will be? But these bees and other insects, they do pollination for free. Right? And apart from that, we can also think about the aesthetic beauty of nature. For example, in your textbook they have written, imagine yourself taking a long walk in the woods, right? So these aesthetic beauties, they don't have price, right? But it provides you a peace of mind, right? It provides you some kind of soothing effect. So these aesthetic beauty of nature, right, are another reason why we should conserve biodiversity. So in broadly utilitarian reasons or arguments of conserving biodiversity, these are not so obvious ones, right? But uh, in this one we can clearly see that the biodiversity, it provides us with so many important ecosystem services for our own well-being, and therefore we should conserve biodiversity so that we continue to get that ecosystem services. The third category of arguments of conserving biodiversity is ethical arguments. In ethical arguments of conserving biodiversity, we say we should conserve biodiversity because we are part of this nature. In the vastness of the universe, we share this blue planet with millions of other species, and therefore we owe it to those millions of other species, our compatriots, to preserve the beauty of the nature, to preserve this particular planet, to preserve the biodiversity of this particular planet. Right? It is our duty to do that. And apart from that, even though a particular species living on this particular planet, that particular species has got some kind of direct economic benefit for the humankind or not, we have to realize that every species has its own intrinsic value. We have to respect that value, and therefore we should conserve that. Right? And over that, it is also our moral duty to care for the nature and pass it to our future generation in a pristine form. We should not destroy nature and pass it down to our future generation a mess of a world. Right? We should pass down the nature in its pristine form to our future generations, so our future generations can also enjoy the same beauty, the same ecosystem services that we have enjoyed. Right? So these are the ethical reasons of why we should conserve biodiversity. Now let us discuss about how do we conserve biodiversity. Now there are two methods of conserving biodiversity. They are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation, we protect the whole ecosystem, thereby protecting all its biodiversity. For example, we save the entire forest to save the tiger. Right? So the main goal is to save the tiger population. In order to do that, we save the entire forest. So that is in situ conservation because we are protecting the tiger in its natural environment. In ex situ conservation, when a species is extremely endangered and needs urgent measures to save it from extinction, then ex situ conservation method is adopted. We cannot adopt in situ conservation. We cannot take the chances, we cannot take the risk of thinking that the organism will reproduce on its own in its natural environment and increase in number. So what the biologists they do is they take the threatened species from its natural environment, take it into a zoo or into lab or into a botanical garden, which means under controlled conditions, and then they try to breed them artificially or they try to breed them in a controlled manner. So such conservation measures are called as ex situ conservation. Here I have shown you a picture of baby pandas over here. So pandas, their number have been dwindling in their natural environment and they do not reproduce that often. Right? So biologists, what they do is they take the pandas from the natural environment into zoos or into enclosures and then they breed them, right? So that their numbers can increase and they can release them into their natural environment. So that is called as ex situ conservation. Now let us look a little bit more about in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation, there is on-site conservation of the threatened species. Right? So there is protection of the entire habitat of the threatened species. Like I told you before, in order to conserve or protect the tiger population, we protect the entire jungle. Right? That is in situ conservation. Now in India, there are certain regions which are legally protected, such as biodiversity hotspots, biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries. So biodiversity hotspots are those regions which shows high level of species richness and high degree of endemism, which means some of the species which are found in these regions, they are found only in those regions and nowhere else. So biodiversity hotspots are those regions and they are highly protected by law. Right? There are about 34 biodiversity hotspots in the world and 3 of those regions fall in India. We have Western Ghats in the south, Himalayas in the north, and Indo-Burma region to the east. Right? So biodiversity hotspots, they are legally protected. And apart from that, other biodiversity rich regions are also given legal protection, such as biosphere reserves. In India, we have 14 biosphere reserves. You can find out the names of biosphere reserves in India. Right? And then there are about 90 national parks in India and 448 wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, so these regions, they are legally protected. But apart from that, we also have got sacred groves. So sacred groves are regions which are protected due to the culture of the region, right? Or the religious belief of the people found in that particular region. Right? For example, some people in their culture, they may consider animals as sacred. Some people, they may consider plants or trees as sacred. So they keep those regions protected because of their own sentimental association or religious association. So therefore, they are called as sacred groves. So sacred groves, there are many examples, but these regions or sacred groves, they are not legally protected. They are just protected by the local people, right? Because of their cultural, religious, and spiritual attachment. Right. So we have got examples like Khasi and Jaintia hills in Meghalaya, Aravali hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat regions, Chanda and Bastar regions of Madhya Pradesh. So sacred groves are present in all these regions. And important thing to know is sacred groves, they do not have legal protection. Right? These areas remains protected because of the people or the local people of that region. Okay, so this is about in situ conservation. Ex situ conservation is also called as off-site conservation because in ex situ conservation, the threatened animals and plants, they are taken out from their natural habitat and placed in special settings where they can be protected and given special care. For example, we have got zoological parks, botanical gardens, wildlife safari parks where the plants and animal species which are extremely threatened, they are given special protection and given special care where they can reproduce and increase in number and their population can be reintroduced into their natural environment. Right, so such is called as ex situ conservation. But now over that, nowadays we also have got cryopreservation of gametes and seeds of the threatened species. Right, we have got international seed banks. You can visit this particular YouTube video and see one particular seed bank which is in Norway. Right, so such conservation steps are ex situ conservation. Okay, so with this we have come to an end of this particular chapter. uh, I have shown you a picture of this particular bird over here. Right, this is monal and this is tragopan, western tragopan. It's the state bird of Himachal Pradesh. It is so rare in nature that now what biologists they are doing is, or what the Himachal Pradesh Forest Department is doing is, they are breeding them in enclosures so that their number can increase in the enclosures and their progenies can be released in the natural habitat. So that is ex situ conservation. Okay, so so with this we have come to an end to this particular chapter. uh, I hope you understood the conservation methods and why we need to conserve biodiversity. Okay, thank you.